6, we be in the mix with that rare candy paint job on the whip. I need food for the kids, money for the rent. Fuck a lockdown, baby, I can't do that shit. And I don't never vote, cause I'm fucking broke. And either way, I know the police ain't gon' leave me alone. On a plane by to visit Glen Rock, need crypto, told me I should bring the Glock with me. So I packed up my piece and I'm sliding. Cause we might get caught up in a riot. Middle finger Trump, middle finger Biden. Fuck a left, fuck a right, is you riding? Know you love to see it, dudes rocking. Ain't no politics, baby, we just talking. From the birds to the bricks, we be in the mix with that rare candy paint job on the whip. Who you with?
Like, I hate to ambush people at the same time, because like I don't want to be like, hey, that thing I said, I didn't know we were recording. But at the same time, when you say 3, 2, 1, go, everyone's like, cool, podcast mode. I'm like, no, we're talking. You know what I'm saying? we're talking. But yes, today we have Andy Edwards today, which I'm going to get into the intro of how I came across his new book, Crowbar, here in a second. But for everybody who's new to the program, listening because of Andy, go to rcnow.org and check that out there. We have a Substack where we talk about fiction on there. There are some free episodes from books that we cover, which are really, which I highly suggest people start with if you're coming here from a fiction literary angle. But yeah, go to rcnow.org or rarecandy.substack.com. Kind of both will lead you to the same place. Now, my guest, Andy Edwards, who most recently came out with a book called Crowbar. And I actually was, you sent it to me. However, it was our mutual friend, Brad Kelly, who I respect, said, I would like this book. Now, Brad is not a guy that just suggests me a book all the time. Like Brad doesn't just go, hey, you'd love this. Hey, you'd love this, like all the time, which is fine. But when he says something like that, I'm like, okay, him and I have spoken for multiple hours, many times. He knows what I like. We've covered books together, and he was 100% correct. Especially when I opened it up, and there's some pretty devastating imagery and subject matter right away in Crowbar. And I was like, man, you think I would like something like this, huh? Well, you're correct. I do. This is excellent. I've got, and Andy, this is available everywhere now, correct?
It is. Yeah. Amazon. And I think you can go to like your local book retailer and ask for it, and they'll get it for you.
Sweet. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I read it on my Kindle. I found out that you can send, this is how archaic I am. I love my Kindle, but I found out that you can just add a book that someone emailed you to your Kindle through Amazon. I was like, this is an excellent use of technology that I otherwise avoid a lot of times. But that was very good. But Andy, we don't know each other very well, and it's kind of rare for me when I read a book that has, like, this is such a loaded term, parapolitics all over it, right? Like kind of the underworld, the political underworld, the one that you're not allowed to talk about. But oftentimes when I hear people talk about it, it comes from like a borderline communist. I don't know if you know that, like, where it's kind of like, what are you suggesting me with all this information? Where are you suggesting I go? Now, I'm not trying to turn this into a political discussion, but I found it very refreshing in your book that you weren't trying to get me into like Maoism. There.
No. Well, yeah. I think I know what you mean because, I'm from Portland and I have an English degree, and so I spent.
No.
Yeah. And I've spent some time around these people, and maybe it's just a matter of kind of that's actually, those are actually their underlying politics, on a lot of these maybe contemporary books or whatever. But yeah, I'm not sure. I have no interest in convincing anybody, at that level. I'm not, honestly, I was thinking about this the other day, and I thought, what if somebody asked me what are my politics at this point? I think I would just bow out. I think I would just be like, you know what, maybe I'm just gonna not elaborate, because I really don't know at this point. I mean, I have opinions, I have this issue that I like, but I'm sort of come to a point where I'm not sure that like America is coherent enough to even have the discussion that if you and I were like earnestly, I mean, I think maybe that's not true. Between two individuals who are being honest, I think you could sit down and probably hash something out. But Yeah, but for certain, I could say at this point, I'm not a socialist or just about anything. I'm kind of a
Yeah.
wanderer right now. Yeah.
Of course. No, no, no. And that comes with a lot of knowledge of certain subjects. Like I think you're supposed to divorce yourself from a lot of that. Like I think that's kind of the benefit and also the curse a little bit of getting into like those deep parapolitical spider webs of
Right.
and for anybody who's, wondering what the heck I'm talking about. I mean, there's Robert Maxwell's in this book. You know what I mean? Like there's real names that you're, Sand. I'm sorry, his name, the
Nick.
Nick Sand. Guys like that. You will only not only, and I mean Robert Maxwell's name's probably popped up in the mainstream a little bit more lately, but like for a while, like you had to know where to find those names and like what you were supposed to do with that information. Like 10 years ago, that had you on a list a lot of times, like knowing about these people and stuff. But yeah, I guess and then like the second thing when I was reading your book, I was like, okay, somebody from the internet emailed me this book. And a lot of times, and this is not a good or a bad thing, but a lot of times I think of it as, well, I'm reading somebody on the internet's book that I know. And it's there's like a level of intimacy with it that's kind of nice, but also like it's less of like, oh, I found this in the bookstore and look at how nice this is, like, which is the ultimate like great thing. It went from the beginning, it went from that first feeling to the latter, I guess, to me, as I was kind of forgot. I was like, oh wait, I'm gonna talk to this guy. Like I'm also going to talk to this guy. I kind of like it's very skillfully written. There's times where you're going to feel a little bit lost reading it, but you realize that you want me to feel lost a little
Yes.
bit. You want me to feel overwhelmed and lost, and then a sense of clarity as it goes on. And that's like the beauty of reading a good mystery action thriller, which I'd hate to box your book in as that, but that it does work as that.
Well, thank you so much. I'm really, you write the book, and was talking to my wife just the other day. I think it was Michael Crichton had this idea.
Don't get me started on Big Mike. I love Big Mike.
Well, I do too, actually. He was kind of an influence when I was a young man. I just ripped through maybe, I don't know, 5, 6 of his books in a row, and then
Oh,
just kind of went about the rest of my life after that. There was the Michael Crichton period, but he said something about like you're the writer and you're inside the ship and you're building the ship from the inside out, and you don't really ever get the outside perspective. So it's an odd place to when you get there and you're like, well, I think this thing is done, so I'm going to send it out. And then so to hear you say that,
mhm.
I absolutely am trying to in the case of Crowbar, it's set in 1982, and
Yeah.
we're working with these themes of like um kind of acceleration and speed and overwhelming distance between like what we sort of as a people or what have you used to feel comfortable with. And so I'm really gratified to hear that at some point you were like, well, I'm not entirely sure where I'm at here.
Hmm.
Because, and again, on the inside of the ship, you're trying to say, okay, I need you to feel a little bit like there's an undertow kind of taking you out,
Hmm. Hmm.
but eventually I'm going to give you a lifeboat, and not just send you adrift out. But yeah, that's really gratifying to hear, so thank you very much.
No, sure. You brought up Michael Crichton. Unfortunately, that's like I can't say he's my favorite author of all time, but he's probably my favorite person to ever write a book. I guess if that is the way I look at it, because he's just so cool and interesting. Correct
Oh
on
yeah.
pretty much everything. Like when you think about it,
Yeah.
like even the stuff he got like quote unquote wrong, he was like, oh, in his like before he died prematurely, and I would still love for someone to investigate how he died because that's very strange. But anyways, he's one of my favorites because like he would never sit down saying, I'm gonna get to this conclusion. It's he would already have the conclusion done, and he would spend so much time researching it to the point where his publisher's like, Michael Crichton, you're printing money for me. I need a book. He's like, okay, but I'm gonna write the book. And that was his biggest hang up was the research was really fun for him, but then sitting down on the computer those wonderful 90s images of him on those computers with like dinosaurs in the background.
Yeah.
You figure it's much more hectic than that for him, and much but he's saying, okay, I have to get this done. I have to get this done. The work's already done there, and he's not necessarily telling you what to think, but he goes, here's what's going on. Here's what's happening. Here, I'm a little, in his mind, I'm a little early on this, books like Disclosure, books like State of Fear. I'm a little early on this, but if you don't kind of understand what's happening here, like, you're going to fall for like a million things. And couched in all of that, this is going to be really fun. That's what I love about him, is he has an everyman's like populist author that I love.
Yeah, he that's like the best to ever do it in that sense right there. Like his grasp of his material and then turning that over into making it accessible for just about, like you say, the everyman. Yeah, what can you say?
Yeah.
Gone
6'9",
for sure.
6'9". I've always said a thing that's if he were to have like stumbled, if he were to have stumbled with his like IQ and just like knowledge and how well spoken he was, if he were to have if he was in like the year 1100, so like one of two things would have happened. They would have killed him on sight or made him king. Like they would have just been like, this guy's going to rule our nation, or we should kill him. Like those are the two things, and which is kind of like, I mean, he's kind of relegated. Nobody really talks about him anymore, despite his IPs like living on and on. Jurassic Park, Westworld, all of the, so many things. He's kind of like relegated into this kind of like ghetto of just like, he's a fun guy. Like it's for kids. It's for kids. Right. It's when you're in 8th grade. And for a lot of people, when I would recommend them, these are people who have read Ulysses, all of these massive, 2666, like these big tomes. I go, hey, give this guy a try, because he's, you'll be surprised, like pick up. I almost all of his books are good. People say where to start. That's the beauty of him. It doesn't really matter where you start. He's not one of those guys. Just pick up a book and then pick up another one of his, and you can spend a year just combing through his books. But I'm glad to hear that he was an influence on you. Yeah.
I did not know that he was 6'9". I mean,
it really adds to it, doesn't it?
I mean, he's got everything. He's like,
wow. Yeah, and he's not a freakish 6'9". He doesn't have like weird ears and stuff like those. Like he's good looking. You're just like, the guy had everything going. That's why when you see the Charlie Rose interview, and then he dies like 6 months later, like of cancer, and you're just like, okay, maybe, but
in our day and age, I wouldn't.
After writing the global warming book, that's just, I don't know, just things that make you go,
what was the one where it's they made it into a movie, I believe, was it Sean Connery? It's kind of like a
Rising Sun.
It must be Rising Sun, where there's the whole BDSM sort of elite aspect to it. I mean, even that was 15 years, maybe 20 years before. And maybe people assumed that very wealthy people were maybe indulging in strange behavior, that everyone else wasn't. But you wonder where Michael Crichton could have gone had he lived.
He was at those parties for sure. I mean, like,
for sure.
I mean, he was so rich. I mean, he sold so many books. It was just, I think that's why I think he's one of those guys that doesn't get the like credit that he deserves because he was so successful. Like, it's kind of like the Beatles in a way or something. Like, people are like, oh, if you say your favorite band's the Beatles, people go, okay, what are you in 6th grade or something? Like, but you're also like, yeah, but I mean, it's still very, successful and good and all of that. Like I think if Michael Crichton was this like John Kennedy Toole type character that just was this tortured guy that never got his credit in his lifetime, people would then view him as underrated and say, this forgotten master. But everyone's like, well, Michael, I used to work at Borders Booksellers, and his, rest in peace. But there used to be just walls of his books. And I would look it up and I go, this guy wrote Jurassic Park. I was like, this is crazy. Like, who's this name? And I didn't even read it at the time. I didn't even do that, but I filed it away until I saw the movie Coma which that's another movie. He directed that movie. It's fantastic with Michael Douglas. Michael Douglas left TV to start movies because of this. And it is a phenomenal movie about, I don't know, people just dying under the hands of the medical industry for organ harvesting.
Whoa.
1976. Fantastic movie.
I think you're onto something though there for sure, that everyone sort of thinks, well, he probably had $200 million to his name. He had a good run. Let's move on. Let's find somebody who, and then, you know, of course, you're talking to an underdog right now. Like nobody actually cares. Very few people actually care about whatever this, you know, this kind of victimized starving artist fellow. Like, yeah, people are shitty that way sometimes. Anyway, yeah, Michael Crichton. I gotta check out Coma.
Coma is, that's what brought me into him, because my wife's mom just was like, hey, do you want to, she rents DVDs from the library to watch them, like when we're over there, just old school boomer like that, you know, and she was like, what about this? And I was like, that looks cool. And I looked on the back, I was like, Michael Crichton. I hadn't read any of his books at the time. This is probably 5 years ago. And I'm looking, and this is 5 years ago, 2020, you know what I mean? Like, and I'm looking, and I go, that looks cool. I love Michael Douglas. I was like, Michael Crichton directed that? How weird. Like, it probably sucks because an author directed it. Like, I'm thinking, and we watch it. And I'm telling you, it's a great movie. I think we did an episode a few years ago on it, but like, it's worth, if anybody hasn't checked it out, make that one of your next watches. But I was thinking about that too, like with authors, like it's kind of sad, especially nowadays. Like, you know, especially nowadays, it's a lot of people like can write a book and like put it on Amazon and stuff. It's very similar to music. It's very similar to anything, but I don't know that we have the like hungry reader base that we used to, which is kind of what I'm hoping to get back. I think we need to fix the demand before the supply, unfortunately. And but I do notice, like, if I could see like almost I'm sure there is like a kind of a sad like cartoon aspect of this, where like a guy could be like just praying or just like even summoning a dark entity, perhaps out of a black cube or something. I don't know, something like that, and just saying like, how do I get my books to sell? And they'll be like, kill yourself. Like, you just got to kill yourself. You will be a successful author. Like, because it's like people pick up the book when that happens, and it's like, dude, these guys, like, there's people writing good books right now that are just sitting, but there's just not that like titillating lore to them, you know. And I feel like people love the lore so much of an author more than they like the books sometimes.
They do. Well, I always you know, we have these characters, Cormac McCarthy and Thomas Pynchon, and I remember being 20 or something when I kind of confront these guys, and then, you know, so one's a recluse and the other's a recluse.
Yeah.
How is this? And then you start to think, is this a thing? Like, do you have to be a recluse to be a novelist? With Thomas Pynchon, I don't know as much. I'm not as familiar with him.
Yeah.
But with McCarthy, I think maybe it was 50-50, where he had to have known that by withholding all this information, it would create a sort of air of mystery. But also, I think that the other 50% was he had some genuine sense that mainstream media and all of this stuff that you and I have had to kind of come of age within, where everything's just essentially gamified. It's if it's not nepotism, it's you know, or if it's not ethnic nepotism or familial nepotism, it's the casting couch or whatever. It's and you may be right that you know, fixing the demand is I think you're probably, even though nobody wants to hear that, including me, because it's like, oh my God, I have to convince 100 million people to read before they're going to buy my book. But I know that's not what you're saying, but you're probably
no, it's my job. It's my job to do that.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, no, it's not your job to do that. Like your job is to keep the thing going. But however, like, things just sit on the conveyor belt sometimes, you know?
Yeah.
But anyways, go on. I interrupted you.
No, I was just a random point. So when you worked at, I don't know if I can ask questions in your format.
The store doesn't exist anymore. Yeah, it's done. Yeah. 2009. This is many years ago.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I grew up in Portland, and Powell's is there. this
Yeah.
famously like the world's biggest bookstore. And so we used to go down there. Usually it'd be around Christmas time. My dad and mom would take us down there, and if you've never been there, I do recommend it. It's
Are you talking
totally
about
safe.
Hawthorne Street or the main one? The
Oh,
burn is it?
Portland. Yeah,
My co-host who's not here today literally lives outside of Portland, and I've been a few times.
okay.
But I'm from Northern California, or the Bay Area. People get mad when you say San Jose is Northern California. It's stupid. But but yeah, I've been to because I personally like the Hawthorne Street one because you have to get through Skid Row, not like Skid Row, but you have to get through everything that you complain about in life to get to like a really cool bookstore. I really like that.
Yeah, there's usually like a little tranche of hippies standing somewhere, and then there's
Yeah,
there
dude.
now of course we have the Fent zombie thing. You got to
Yeah.
get through them. It's been I don't spend that much time there recently, but the big one is on Burnside, and
Mhm.
I actually, if that's why I was like, man, you must be from Portland or something, because the connoisseur knows that the Hawthorne spot, if you can get over there on it, like when it's kind of not crowded, and grab yourself a coffee, yeah, it's like ideal. But we used to go there as kids, and then it's still there, but it I don't know. I don't know what I have a friend actually who has worked there for like 20 years, one of my best friends, and he doesn't get to turn the books out, or he's a maintenance guy, which is
Mhm.
is still pretty cool. But I don't know what to say about the state of that thing, the concept of going to a bookstore and all of that. It seems to be alive, but it's almost got some weird nostalgia attached to it, where maybe it's being propped up just by I don't know, dudes like you and me who feel almost like it's a duty. Well, if I go to Portland, I gotta go to the bookstore. I gotta
Mhm.
spend $20 just to keep this thing kind of, this fire burning. But
Yeah. Yeah. I went to, so I had a really fun, because you hear like the kind of trope from the like right wing type of guy to go like, I don't go into those bookstores anymore. It's just like walking into, this factory or whatever, and all of that. And I go, well, I mean, like Barnes and Noble kind of sucks though. Like I hate to bring
yeah,
it to you. Like I go to Barnes and Noble, I feel the soulless energy that people says. I understand people's complaint about the recycled kind of bookstore with every kind of flag except the American one. Like I understand what people are saying. All of that's true. However, when I was going to Hawthorne Street, now my co-host used to live on Hawthorne Street above like a Buffalo Exchange or something. Like he used to
oh yeah,
literally live like above that.
yeah,
He doesn't anymore. He's got a nice place outside of outside of Portland. But he would tell these stories about that there, where it was just like, it's crazy because you'll see all these kids and you can tell a lot of them would come from like a rich family and
yep,
stuff. And it's kind of like similar to stuff that like in books like Crowbar and stuff, where you're like, these are like disaffected like youth that are caught up in some like weird movement and stuff, but they're like not showering. I mean, all of that stuff is true. And you're
yeah,
walking in and you're seeing Michael Crichton type people with pink hair walking around, and just
yeah, that's good.
odd stuff. Like,
Yeah,
and then all of a sudden I go into Hawthorne, which I hadn't been to this one before I went to Sai's wedding up there. And I was like, I took my wife and I was like, let's go to the one on Hawthorne. And she wanted to thrift, but like all the thrift stores out there were not her style of thrifting. It was all like weird, like Viagra shirts, repurposed like Cialis shirts, like with like metal logos and stuff, like very, very strange stuff. And
whoa,
yeah, very strange. She's into like the more like Diane Keaton, like Woody Allen movie thrifting. Like she's
yeah,
not into that. Yeah, she's not into like the like
good.
make yourself look insane thrifting. But so anyways, I go into the Hawthorne thing, and I'm walking through, and it's everything everyone's complaining about. I feel like I'm in a meme, like a meme is being created. And then I walk in to the H's and I pick up a brand new copy, faced outward, Michelle Welbeck submission. So,
Yep,
I mean, Barnes and Noble will not face that outward.
nope,
They won't. They're like, they probably have rules against it.
yeah,
And then they had a whole like Ayn Rand section. And again, like this is interesting to me. Like it's one of those things where I think half the people that work at these Powell stores, like they don't even know what half the books in there are. You know what I mean? Like you'll look at a cover of a book and you'll just be like, well, I don't you know, if you have a problematic movie, fat face, people can look at an actor and be like, well, that's Mel Gibson. You know, like I know that that's bad because I don't like Mel Gibson or something. Like people will say that. But a book, they're just like, I don't even know who the author is. I don't know what the book's about or anything like that. And there's kind of this mystery element of books that I do feel like it's a better way to tell a story in terms of like what you believe or what you're trying to get across. Because to be honest, a lot of times people are just not going to understand, and it won't get lost in the kind of like hysteria that like movies and other things are, you know. So I will say, if anybody's scared of recycled books, just go. I mean, there's just lots of great stuff in there. People will donate them, or they'll even just come across it after somebody died or something and just give it to that store, and that store will put it in there and you'll find it there.
I remember maybe this was around the COVID era. I'm not exactly sure. I mean, everyone lost their minds.
Yeah.
You and I didn't, I'm sure, but I mean,
I
almost
felt like
everybody.
I felt like I did.
Same. But I remember that may be the only instance that I know of where there were a couple, whatever kind of political events that happened around PALs where maybe they did kind of bow down to these calls to get, you know, whatever ex-fascist or perceived as fascist
Right.
author out. But the beauty of like, I mean, my family's been there 7 generations. And
Wow.
so I think about this quite a bit. And of course, watching the city that everyone will say was among the most beautiful just maybe 10 years ago, 15 years ago, like really. And I try not to, it's I've thought about just doing a whole podcast about it because I can hardly even dent it. So it may be
Mhm.
that I'm just not the right guy to do this, but um you're right, because there, whatever that element is there, whether it's some sense of fair play or just maybe happenstance, but you can absolutely go into a couple of those, like Hawthorne and the big one on Burnside and maybe some
Mhm.
others, and you'll find a real mix of politics. They'll be the most insane possible, you know, 7 foot, pink-haired, uh, you know, author, just the
Author.
weirdest shit.
Yeah.
Yeah, author.
Yeah.
We'll
That's
say
an
that.
author. Yeah. Yeah.
And it, but then, yeah, Ayn Rand or whatever, Yaki or Ernst
Mhm.
Younger or
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah.
And you're right to think, well, the fact is, like, these socialists that are running over here, maybe stocking the shelves, the truth is, like, they don't have any idea who Ernst Younger is. If they
No.
knew, maybe they would put up a stink, but it's just as likely that somebody else would say, you know, underlying all of this stuff, we do have, there's people there who still do just believe in, like, the intellectual
Yeah.
game, you know, the purity of it, if you will. My friend is like that. You know, he's not necessarily, he kind of rides this wave, and
Mhm.
but to
Mhm.
his credit, and I've seen him go from kind of this extreme to another, he does continue to learn, and his views have developed. Um, Hearing it from him, and I'm just sort of broadly
Yeah.
painting, this is probably the case in the Bay Area. It's probably the case in Phoenix and LA and New York or what have you. There, there are people there who still have some sense that, hey, if you want to read this, dude, you should be able to read it. I mean, we're still adults at that level. It's not this
Yeah.
completely mindless, kind of mainstream approach to canceling and whatnot.
Yeah, and I think also there's a level of intimacy with the book. It's author and reader. That's what's happening there.
Yeah.
You're in a movie theater and you hear something you know you shouldn't hear in a movie.
Yeah.
If you're laughing at it in a theater, everybody's gonna go, "Well, that guy, what's going on with
Yeah.
that guy?" With a book, it's just you. You know, with
Right.
a book, it's just you. And I think a lot of people, when it's just them and the author, sometimes a lot of these kind of weird calcifications of modernity that are on them kind of evaporate, or at least temporarily, right? Like there is
Yep.
a performative. I mean, people talk about the performative reader. There's the performative processor. You know what I guess I will say of like in terms of like media literacy and all these hot button terms, like that's why I think even if you go into Hawthorne, again, they might hire, a guy from my team or something. Maybe he's cosplaying over there, and maybe he's like, I'm here to solve this and that. That'd be funny. I mean, that'd be cool and all that stuff. But I also just think there's people, like you said, there's people that go, well, I want you to, maybe you should read this. Maybe you should look at this. And maybe you might read it and say wrong, bad, but you read it. And a lot of people are scared because you probably will fall. A good author, you probably will, kind of fall under their spell a little bit. You probably will, just slightly. I've read some books where I go, come on, but it's still at the end of the day, I'll be like, this is a good book. This is a good book, and you entertained me for 2 weeks.
Yeah,
or something like that. So, but you've 7 generations of Oregon. I like that. That's really cool because and we're a transplant culture. I live in a new state now. I'm in Nevada now after 35 years in the Bay Area. I mean, they pushed me out. I couldn't do anything there, and both economically, I'm not in tech, so what am I going to do there? To be honest. And so they pushed me out. You stayed in Oregon. Now, all in Crowbar, there's these beautiful but also eerie scenes of Portland nature happening. You also bring up Point Reyes in San Francisco, and I love that. People don't understand this about the West Coast, because I feel like on the East Coast, you like, could be wrong. I don't have much time there. A lot of the like places that are like considered scary in like the like psyopy parapolitical way, they look that way. It's like a big gray building in Washington, D.C. And you're like, yeah, that's scary. But like in San Francisco, you'll be in like the most beautiful Point Reyes station. It's gorgeous. Yeah, a painting. You could paint it a million times and get somebody's different interpretation of it. But the whole time you'll be like, hey, they're like taking this 14-year-old kid and like in this thing over there while you're like smoking weed on the beach. Yeah. And it's crazy. I would imagine Oregon's got a lot of that too.
Yeah. Yeah. You're right. It's like with this book, for readers or for potential readers who may be interested, like I had some constraints, or self-imposed. I'm a big believer in the constraints thing. It's worked out very well. It kind of forces you to up your game. And so I wanted to keep it as close to like novella length as I could, which is generally people will say this is like 50,000 words or what is it? Something like that. So I was shooting for 55,000, and this required me to really compress the description. So there were times where I want to describe nature more. In my first book, King of Dogs, there's tons and tons of nature description, and it's more of a meandering thing. But as I got writing this, I found myself in this position of saying, like, you're at the beach or something in a scene. I could go on 2 pages with, the description of the sky and the interesting little creatures that are around there and the plants. But again, the constraints. I wanted it to be like a fast read, something that would just sort of pick you up, take you on this ride, and then maybe drop you off, not real gently, but sort of in a new place. And so in working this out over actually writing it, it gave me some ideas about, well, maybe I should try writing some other, I don't know, just something really like not parapolitical, not supernatural, just like a couple of normal dudes doing normal shit where I could go up and down the West Coast and do more description of. And so, eventually I may do that, because you're right. And I agree. I have lived everywhere. I've lived all on the East Coast, and I haven't, no disrespect, but I'm from here, and this is where I love it here. And I'll never go back. But the potential for weirdness is just kind of like unmatched. I feel like you can walk into, I don't know, like some of those North Woods. If you've ever been to like Minnesota, like way up in Minnesota, or way in the UP of Michigan, there's an eerie sense to how the trees are all kind of the same height. And you have this feeling like, well, man, if you drop me about 4 miles in there, you can't really see the sky.
Yeah.
You might have, but out here, So I think a lot of our spooky imagery may actually be derived out of the East Coast, and we have this whole like wide open thing out here on the West where it's maybe a little bit uh untapped. You can
Yeah.
do a lot of creepy stuff out here, especially as you pointed out, like I mean, the Presidio is kind of a fascinating building, and the whole area there is so especially. I mean, now I haven't been in a while, but I hear it kind of it's a little trashy. But I like in the 90s. I mean, God, it was like a paradise to go through San
Mhm.
Francisco and see
Oh,
because it had this mashup of like real elite sort of big money stuff with right up against the wharf and more earthy kind of hippie bleed over sorts of bars and whatnot.
yes.
Uh yeah, I mean to spend some time writing there like in my mind in 1982, it was a good thing to
Yeah.
go back and think, man, we have lost we have lost so much, and
Uh-huh.
it's painful. Yeah.
You're so right about that. I mean, it's I have gone back recently. Before we moved out of the Bay Area, we wanted to hit San Francisco, Marin, Mill Valley, like a few times, and really just get just all around the Golden Gate Bridge. Like people, like the Golden Gate Bridge is really cool. It's
Yeah.
really cool. There's like really crazy parts like underneath the bridge and stuff that people like. For anybody who hasn't seen Vertigo or has seen Vertigo by Hitchcock, that's at Fort Point, which is the eeriest but coolest place in like San Francisco, in my opinion. Like you're down there and it's this really industrial, like the Japanese are coming kind of thing in like 1942. And they're like, they better not try anything. And it's all these like Spanish tiled military buildings over there. And then you
Yeah.
look and you're just like, there's sharks down there. There's like
Yeah.
sharks down there. And it's Kim Novak's floundering in the water and stuff out there. Like it's got all of that. That's why Vertigo is still my favorite Hitchcock, because people will say it's get this like new reappraisal for being, but it's like just weird and like jumbled. But like that's how you feel when you're there. That's like it's a very odd thing. Like you said, you're in a hippie bar, you're doing all this crazy stuff, and then you go and you just see Spanish style like military buildings that people say are like not being used anymore. I'd be like, I'd still be using those.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, like I'd be using those. I bet they are.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, there again with the nature kind of I I don't know. I'm gonna really avoid like shitting on East Coast. So I'll just focus on
You don't have
like
to. Now, don't do it on my behalf. But yeah, go ahead.
okay.
Yeah,
Well, I mean, but if I'm picking up what you're putting down, like I mean the nature out here again, like yes, it's probably much diminished from even 20 years ago.
yeah.
But like you go up to Bellingham and or
Mhm.
even here in Oregon, you're going to see I have seen like pods of whales very close. You go in these little coves, Depot Bay, or again up near like the San Juans. As a kid, we would go up there, and at the right time, you could just go down this little trail off on a dock, and you could see we saw orcas and we saw I don't know some sort of I guess it
Wow.
must have been like a humpback. My kids would know. They're crazy about whales. But all of that stuff, the nature is right up in your face. The redwoods are right there. And yeah, people don't understand that like staggering beauty of Northern California in particular. I mean, you go a little bit inland towards, you can go all the way to Mammoth, which is maybe my favorite country of all time. Like it's just spectacular. And then I don't know where you're at in Nevada, but that border, the border between California and
Yeah.
Nevada, I mean,
I'm
it's
close to
beyond
there.
belief. Are
Yeah,
you okay?
definitely. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that I mean the whole Carson where Kit Carson used to run around,
Hmm.
the Sierras, spectacular. You got
Yes.
nothing like everyone says, I hear Montana, Montana, Montana. Have you been to the Nevada California border? It's mind-blowing. And it just keeps
Spectacular.
going and going and it's so diverse and yeah. I have so much love for the West.
Mhm.
Yeah, I could go on about it forever.
Oh, it's great, and I didn't know where you were from. I could tell you had spent like reading your book. I could tell you had spent extensive time up and down the West Coast. This kind of just was where I was at, but the you do go a little paranormal in this book.
Yes.
You do. And I was wondering because I'll tell you the 3 authors that came to mind while I was reading your book. And I feel like authors don't like to hear this because it makes it sound like you're copying, but it's not. This is just a reader's interpretation. Readers will always liken something to something else they've read. It's just what they do. And so to me, I read McCarthy in there a little bit, a lot of McCarthy. I read DeLillo, which is probably why Brad recommended this book to me, because we've covered Libra together. There was a little bit of that in there, but then also James Ellroy. Ellroy, who I think is one of my all-time favorites. Now you did the opposite of what he does in his books, where he's just like, you get everything. It's going to overwhelm you. It's going to be, plane rides, drunk, hangover plane rides constantly, guys using every racial slur in the book, yelling at each other, like all of these things in there. But I did get that, especially between Jay and Al, which you could say that that's a little bit of McCarthy, kind of All the Pretty Horses, a little bit like a border trilogy. But I also got a lot of James Ellroy because Jay and Al are part of ex-Rhodesian intel kind of, or ops, like in there, and they're being repurposed for something that they know they're like going to be recycled in. Like they realize they're not the end of the game. The game has evolved much beyond what they do. And they're older guys, but you want to go like, well, they're doing this and they're doing that. And you're kind of like parapolitically mapping it. But by the end of the book, you just fall in love with those 2 guys like, you know what I mean? Like it becomes this adventure thing where that's what I get when I read McCarthy and Ellroy. It's particularly Ellroy because he's operating in the same kind of world, I will say, like the underworld, where you're just going like, yeah, but I love Pete Bondurant. I like him. Like I don't care what he's doing. I don't care what side he's on. You can't really tell. He's whoever pays him, and that's the thing. But you're like, I just want him to come out of this okay. I don't care if he's supporting the thing I hate.
Absolutely,
I was getting a lot of that, but then you go paranormal with it, which I love. Those guys don't really do that. Even Pynchon, to a degree, will be sympathetic to the paranormal. He'll kind of go, yeah, but actually that's this guy sending off signals, and that's his job, and he's like a cheese heir. You know what I mean? Like he sends off paranormal signals to scare people. You're kind of like, no, there's something going on, which I like.
Oh man, that's so gratifying to hear. Thank you so much for that, because there's a bunch of stuff there. I think I don't know, my favorite DeLillo is Mao 2.
Interesting. I read that.
Mm-hmm. I think that's his best one. I haven't read all of them. I've read the big ones, and I specifically did not read Libra while I was writing this.
Mm-hmm.
And I've never actually finished that book, but you're right to point out Ellroy. He to me is, I think now that McCarthy's gone, I personally think that James Ellroy is the greatest living novelist.
Yeah.
And man, as when you say Pete Bondurant, I feel exactly the same. I get lost in Ellroy's he's so comprehensive, and so like it's unlike anything else I've heard. That he will write these like hundreds and hundreds of pages of outline, and then basically just take that outline and sort of elaborate on that. I don't know even to what extent. I'd be really fascinated to see what his process is like. But there's no question. There are specific rhythms that I wanted to just straight steal from Ellroy, but I've been kind of stewing in his. This is disgusting, but stewing in Elroy's juices, kind of, is a nasty phrase.
I've done it too. Yeah,
you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I've just sort of osmosed this over a long period of time, and I can't wait to basically go, get back into Ellroy. I have a couple of books just waiting. And of course, McCarthy, well, what's gratifying to hear that you picked up on is I didn't think when I was writing necessarily like, oh, here's this buddy kind of, but you're exactly right, because the Border Trilogy, I've read all those books maybe 10 times, and I still think those friendships are maybe some of the best in all of literature. John Grady Cole, Blevins,
sure,
Billy Parham. There's like something so just fundamental and heavy there. So it's nice to, in doing something like this, where I'm like you say, there's this supernatural element mixed in, and at a certain point, I wanted that. I don't know how readers will take it in
Mhm.
mass when you get to that point where you're like, is the author actually saying this happened, or as you suggest, is it kind of an uncertain thing where maybe someone's hallucinating it, but I in kind of me crossing that barrier, I wasn't sure myself how it would all hang together, or if it would,
Mhm.
and there needed to be a heart. And Brad and I actually talked about that a little bit. We
Nice.
were talking about like what is the heart, well, it's Jay and Al, and okay,
Absolutely.
yeah, that was the goal.
Yeah, when the book starts to expand, 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 and you feel like you really are without a paddle, like you're just really like, and again, this is a thing I've come to enjoy as a reader a lot of times. However, if you don't eventually throw me a paddle, I'm like, okay, Jay and Al are the paddle. Jay and Al are the ones that get you through the book. Jay and Al are the I don't want to give away too much of it. That when you see their names on the next page, you're like, cool, we're back. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
And it immediately makes the stuff before that you were a little like, what's happening here? Like that immediate, it almost contextualizes that because you're in the sense of comfort with those two people. And that's a deeply like masculine thing to put in books. I think like when people say men don't read anymore, Jay and Al characters are how to get men reading again, in my opinion. Like if that's true, if that's even true, I have no idea if it's even true if men aren't reading anymore. But if like I guarantee you, not a lot of modern books have a J and Al, to appease the male, like the kind of male friendship, the kind of like I don't want to crap on women
yeah,
for this, but like women will throw their friends away over nothing. You know what
yeah,
I mean? So like men are kind of like, we've been through everything together, dude. And
yeah.
they have. I mean, they talk about all of their exploits all across, the world. And you're just thinking like, I care about that stuff, but I'm at what you actually care about is that they're are they friends? You don't even know. Like you're like, they are friends because they have to be. But also it's like they've probably become friends too. And that's like such a fun male aspect to this book.
Well, thanks, man. In trying to deal with the fact that they're Rhodesian, and so the way I conceptualized it, I have read a number of books on Rhodesia, and I have
Okay.
talked to, I sort of have one friend who was there for all of that. He's a very old man now, but the sense that I got is that it was more like the way Americans would view not even necessarily a state, but maybe like a city here, like I I can't
Mm,
bring up, populations or what have you, but the fact that maybe they didn't know each other, these two characters, Jay and
mhm.
Al, when they were growing up,
Yeah.
is kind of irrelevant because they would have, just like if you and I went to a public school and you went to public school in
Mhm.
San Jose, let's say, and I went in Portland, we would have a tremendous, in the same era, we'd have a lot in common. And they they find themselves without a country. And back then a lot of Rhodesians went down to South Africa, but in many ways, from my research, it seems like the strife and the pressure on their way of life, um, and it did. The wars continued in South Africa after the Rhodesian thing was sort of settled. And so I had hoped that in placing these characters on the west coast of America, some readers might do a little, and I don't want to force anybody to do anything, but to juxtapose those guys out here at our
Yeah.
frontier,
Mhm.
it would maybe, inspire some people to do some thinking. But at the heart of it, yeah, I mean, if you don't have a couple of characters that you like Pete Bondurant again, um, who care, like at a certain point you're like, man, this guy's kind of a wreck. I mean, he's kind of just doing
Yep.
whatever, but I'm a little bit worried about him, and I need him to help me get through the book. And
Mhm.
Elroy does that, like, man, I mean, he's so good at that. But
Yeah.
maybe, now that I think about it, so much sort of recurs as you start to get out of the process of actually writing the book that um Pete Bondurant. So is that's Cold 6000 or
It's the Underworld trilogy.
the Underworld trilogy.
I
Yeah.
won't spoil when he's not in the Underworld trilogy anymore, but yes, he's a big aspect in those. And I want to say he comes in part of the LA Quartet or something. Elroy's got like a Marvel universe, like where like guys will bleed into, because he's writing in timelines similar to Thomas Pynchon. He'll bring people in from other timelines, but he's one of the stars of American Tabloid and really the Cold 6000. Yeah.
Yeah. And anyway, I didn't realize to what extent I was probably, mirroring that or thinking of that subconsciously, because in his way, I mean, Elroy does, because Elroy must find himself in a similar position, right? Where he's got to say, dude, I'm throwing everything but the kitchen sink at you.
Yeah, man.
And it's really dark. It's oftentimes just like one betrayal after another, one sort of shit sandwich after another. So yeah, I'll have to think about that when I read him again. I wonder if he considers this issue of the heart and how a reader can kind of navigate through.
Yeah. Oh gosh. No, it came it, it was immediately what I thought of. It was really cool. And I will say this too. You I have to bring this up. You have some pretty violent killers in this book.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
it's not a mystery either from the get-go. They're just, hey, these guys kill people. These are like right away, these are bad guys. However, they're useful to I don't whatever way you describe power, and where from some people say ruling class, some people say the elites, some people say this. They are very much important. I mean, they're like leading mission. Talk about the serial killers. Now, I have not read Program to Kill yet. I'm scared to. I feel like I'm gonna hate myself after I read that book, regardless of if I believe it 100% or not. I just feel like I'm gonna hate it. I have a PDF just staring at me, a file on my book, on my computer. I've read Weird Scenes in the Canyon. I understand that there's clearly something there with the serial killers, particularly in the timeline that you're writing it in the early 80s. What do you have a fascination with this West Coast? We got a lot of them on the West Coast, so that's
Right.
that up and down the coast, people just killing people. Nevada, I think per capita, we have the home for the most serial killers per capita.
Really?
In your face, California. Yeah.
Wow.
We
Yeah.
have we definitely have. I think that's what they said. We have the most amputees and serial killers per capita, I believe.
No kidding.
Yeah, I think doctors out here just if you have like a headache, they just bring out like the DeWalt tools or something, or like if you're like my arm, like my shoulder, my AC joint, and they pull down the little like mask and like I think they just do that out. They're like Dr. Nick out here basically, but I think we have a lot of that. But back to what I was saying, the serial killers, big aspect of this book. What's your take on all of that? It's interesting.
Yeah, I'm really, again, I'm so gratified. It's so nice that a reader can pick that stuff up and kind of place, because of course Dave McGowan is the main reference for this stuff. So well, I remember as a kid, I mean, I'm pushing 50, there's no need to hide that. But I grew up through this era. Like in 1982, I was, pretty aware. And I do remember specifically my parents sitting me down and having at least one, maybe a couple discussions about, strangers and vans, and if anyone stops you as you're walking, like how to, and I don't want to go into the whole boomer thing of, well, we had to jump under our desks because of this constant fear of the nuclear. It wasn't exactly that for Gen X. I remember it just being, and I remember literally there was an instance where I don't know where I was. This would have been in Portland or sort of outside Portland, but some vehicle did kind of do this thing of pulling up on the side of the road and kind of the door opening. And I distinctly remember it was just like, no. And I turned the afterburners on, and ran through the woods and got home. And so I'm sure that at some level, this has always been with me in terms of like did it really, what's the, I don't know, because you're right. Like if you look at the instance of serial killers, I mean, in that period, they are just all up and down. I have this character, D'Angelo,
Oh yeah.
John Joseph. So this is a real guy, or he existed, and some of his backstory is
See, I didn't
real.
even know that. I was so lost. I had the Kindle. I could have easily highlighted his name and got that. But I was like, is this? Cause you have a lot of real names. I thought this was a composite killer, like a composite guy. That's funny.
He may be. I kind of
No,
lost
no,
track of.
no. He definitely is real. Yeah, I'm looking at him right now. This is the Golden State Killer.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, gotcha. I'm like, what the hell? The original Night Stalker. Wow. Yeah. Okay. Go ahead. Please go on. Yeah.
Yeah, but you're right. I mean, I what I'll do with this stuff is maybe a little different than Elroy or McCarthy. Like, I don't. I'll just use the elements I think are necessary to kind of
Hmm.
make to start building the character, and so there may be some composite there in terms of like where was he operating, and certainly I make a bunch of other stuff up. But I what's fascinating too about the serial killer thing was one, I think that it happened. Like I do think that there were programs to see if people like this who were maybe already coming in with some
Hmm.
combination of childhood abuse and some like
Hmm.
sociopathic violence sort of tendencies, if they could be harnessed and then used by state actors. I mean, why wouldn't they? They've done everything else. I mean, there's no moral line that certain war or elite type cabal, whatever we want to call them, they don't see the same lines that we do. And so
Right.
I imagine that did happen. I don't know to what extent it happened, but I do find it curious, like probably you do, that it seems to have changed or died down to where we don't hear a lot about like this guy who has 80 bodies on him, and then he turns up at like he gets picked up in working at Boeing like 20 years after the fact, which is
Yeah.
I think what happened to D'Angelo. Maybe it was a different character who I lifted that from, but one of those guys, there's the Green River Killer. There was, the other thing was Ted Ted Bundy's the handsome one, I
Yes.
think.
Hmm.
So my mom was uh at Oregon State University, and when this was happening, and her sorority sister or somebody in her dorm was killed by this dude
Whoa.
while she was there. And the other thing, that
And I'm sorry, where was this at again? Like, if
uh,
you like, what part of the country?
Oregon,
Oregon.
Corvallis, Oregon.
Corval.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Oregon State. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
I think that Bundy's thing, again, it's been a little while since I looked at him, but I think that he sort of roamed. Like I think he would
Sure.
take road trips, and sort of like who knows what all is on his mind, but he wound up in quite a few different places throughout California, I think Washington and certainly Oregon. And yeah, he stabbed the shit out of this, killed this woman or a co-ed in a dorm, I believe. And
Sackett Hall. It's checking out. I'm looking it up right now. Sackett Hall
okay,
at
okay.
Oregon State. I think you're
Yeah.
onto something.
Yeah, so that would have been like maybe 1970 or 71-ish or somewhere in there.
Yep.
Yeah, yeah. So that's when she was there. Yeah, so that's another aspect of this wilderness,
Wow.
this wild thing that has always you see a lot of people talking about this in like internet and stuff. Like I've just noticed it, people naming their podcast like Frontier Podcast or whatever, and I
Uh
think
huh.
might have to do something with like technologically we sort of feel like we're at the end of the line, like okay, well there's no more frontier or whatever. And I've always thought, well, yeah, I know what you mean, like okay, the actual land mass is sort of over and maybe we've reached the end of some sort of um maybe like the sociological sort of framework that we've lived with for a long time, but we still have this huge psychic frontier. We still have the whole there's a lot more to explore.
Hmm.
So part of the book was thinking about jamming a few of these things together, and this to step back one step, the wilderness out here, there's plenty of serial killers out east, but But here in the 70s or the
Mhm.
80s even, I can just imagine it being, if you wanted to kill people on like a wholesale basis, dude, it wouldn't have been that hard. I mean, there's no
No.
cell phones. There's no like reliable database of and some
Mhm.
of these guys did, they would just kind of get in trouble in one state and then just pop up a few years later in Arizona or something doing the same sort of stuff, and the cops would have no idea.
Yeah. Yeah, because I like part of me, I'm like, and again, I'd have to read more about it because I could imagine I'm definitely I have one foot in the door. Like there's part of me going like, okay, you have a guy, who's connected to the military, Boeing, and all this stuff, and he's just roaming up and down California, like killing people. And I don't get the idea he's like this Born Identity, like espionage guy that's like covering, like wiping everything down and
Right.
doing all of like in your book, he's like kind of sloppy. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like it's like he's not hiding what he's doing a lot of
Right.
times. And you're just kind of like, wait, the only way that could happen for that as long as it did, like I said, I bet you could rack up about, a decent amount before it really got going. Like the only way that could happen is if like it was allowed or at least harnessed. And so much of this, people will talk, like, I think there's kind of an argument within the kind of like schizo community, and I say that with love, would be is kind of like, did the CIA or whatever three-letter agency, like what did they create this, or did they harness it and point it in a direction that they thought could be beneficial? Like whereas you talk about music in Laurel Canyon, like was that a burgeoning movement already that they were like, let's make sure that stays in the direction we want it to, which is where I'm at right now. And it's like, let's use it to run drugs, let's do all these things, and then squeeze it to basically reduce it to nothing but a bunch of junkies, and then have it be a fad rather than maybe it was going to usher in this new generation of X, Y, and Z. Serial killers, I can imagine being the exact same thing. They're like, we have these freaks, almost all of them come out of the military, almost all, like they have files and reports on them. They have, how can we, instead of, if these people are gonna do this, right? Like, how can we make this beneficial? Like, there's that like dating game one. I haven't done too much, but there's like a guy, like the dating game killer guy. Like, that's so strange to me. Like
Is
the
that
guy who was, yeah, I forget his name, but even
Barris?
he's the host. Chuck Barris was the host, but then I think they had like a contestant on there that was like running amok, like killing a bunch of people. But then Barris was like supposed to be this like CIA agent. It's like, look,
Yeah.
you might not be, I don't blame anybody for not being a maximalist on this. It ultimately doesn't really help you with anything as a
Right.
person. Like
Right.
it's fun. Like I wish people would admit that it's more fun than it is like, you guys need to listen. It's like, I wish people would admit that it's like, look, there's obviously something foul happening, like, or at least the ultimate coincidence is happening. But I get it. I'm like, that is weird. Like, that is weird. If I told you that, if I just told you those things and just said this, and this happened, you wouldn't be like, no, that's like the weirdest coincidence of all time. Okay, but then I'll tell you this, and this, and so it's like it is odd to me, and I'm constantly towing that line, probably for self-preservation a lot of time, because I don't. That's why one thing I love about Thomas Pynchon is that he doesn't really reward the people for falling down the rabbit hole. A lot of times, like Thomas Pynchon at the end of Crying a Lot 49, I don't think he rewards Oedipa Maas. Like I don't think he's rewarding her for like going down this rabbit hole. Like I don't think he hates her, but it's like, hey, you don't have a husband anymore. You got really nothing else going on, but enjoy the stamp collection. Like
Right.
like I guess like, and I kind of feel that way too, despite it being very interesting to me.
Yeah, there. Well, and not to be too cliche, out of it's this if you look in the abyss looks back
Yes.
kind of thing. I'm not sure where I stand, but where entirely, but I think I feel the same way in the sense like um there's something there, and whether or not I get to the bottom of it, or
Yeah.
we do, is yeah, you're right. It makes no difference. There's a certain aspect where, well, like I personally, let's go to COVID just for one
Why not?
example. Why not? I'm like, without saying, okay, somebody architected this idea
Mm-hmm.
to slow kill like a couple million people or whatever. I don't know. There's a fair bit that that looks like, yeah. And
Mhm.
then there's a part of me that's like, I think that these people are that disgusting and awful. So I don't have a problem. It at a certain place, a lot of people will say, well, dude, these people are inept. They can't coordinate. Look how stupid our
Yeah.
government is. Like, how could they pull any of this off? And I think, man, that's a great point. But then again, I think one, just a lot of strange coincidence happens in anybody's life, whether we're like super diabolical or organized or not. Things are always happening. Okay. But then I add this element of compartmentalization where this is like a tried and true established sort of protocol within military and intelligence and increasingly more benign sorts of organizations. Like the guy working down the hall doesn't necessarily know what the accountant over here is doing, and the accountant doesn't have any idea what
Right.
the analyst 2 floors down is doing. How hard would it be to separate all of these things? And again, going back to like the 70s and the 80s, dude, I think that if you had some pull and some balls, you really got away with an enormous amount of, because people just weren't really awake to the fact, like, some people are really bad. Some people aren't just bad like the way that the kid was bad when I don't know, like the closest thing that we may have run up against to a sociopath.
Yeah. Mhm.
Some people are much, much, much worse. And so if that doesn't really register as a possibility, people just overlook it, which is a scary thing. And so that's kind of the only place where I say maybe this does have some utility for guys like us who want to go maybe not all the way to the bottom
Yeah.
of the pit and like really entertain darkness, but to get a real good grasp on, there's things that I need to do for my own self-preservation. In my case, I have 3 kids,
Right.
and and you're married, and all of our family members. There's some level of like,
Mhm.
I think, responsibility. And so let's say with COVID, that was just like a really nefarious, not so much just incompetence. If you were like me, I was like, you know what, I'm just gonna not partake. And if I get this little cough, okay, fine. And
Yeah.
if it kills me, well, I guess I was wrong. But what I'm hearing from this is that you people jam this thing through, and there's already a history of clusterfuck evil here. I'm just gonna bow out. And I don't really know. We're in this weird information, psychological warfare sort of status in general. I don't know how many people died. I don't know how many people didn't die, but it seems to me like a bunch of people died, and it was kind of a bad deal. So maybe this 20 years of staring into like conspiracy and government ineptitude meeting maybe something like true evil did protect. Our firstborn, my firstborn son. My wife was pregnant all during COVID. So there was all
Oh
this
wow.
pressure of, well, dude, if you're going to go to the hospital to have the kid, she's going to have the shot. And then he's going to have the shot. And the whole time, you're like, oh, dude, like, what else am I going to do? So I'm online buying, the equipment. You can get all this shit on eBay. You can get like, I mean, I can't do an operation necessarily, but you can deliver a baby at home.
Sure.
And my mom was a nurse, so she's telling me, well, if it happens, I don't know, I forget what the fucking thing was, but it was like catch, pad, and whatever. You're like, okay,
Yeah.
well, that's the level that I'm at with this, because why are you people
Yeah.
forcing me to take this thing? Because it's only been here for 3 months. This does not make any sense to me. You
Yeah.
know what I mean?
No,
Yeah.
no, no. Yeah, you're correct. I know exactly what you mean. Like the answer, like the normal guy response to that, to me, like the centrist response that's not going down crazy rabbit holes is going like, huh, no, I don't. How about I don't? How about I'm the control group?
Right.
How about that? I feel good. How about I'm the control group? And if I
Yeah.
die, laugh at me. Laugh at
Yep.
me. I'm fine. I believe in God and Jesus Christ. Like if I die, I do fear dying.
Yeah.
I'm not going to pretend I'm some, above death type of guy. But if it happens, I know who I'm correct with. Like I know who to make peace with. I know who to do that. And I'll consider myself a dumb guy and enter God's kingdom a little bit earlier. As if I'm a betting man, I'd say I probably wasn't gonna do that. And the answer was correct. I think we're long past enough that to say we didn't need to mess with that. Now, what you said about ineptitude, I loved, because that's always been like the ever burning question of since COVID for me. But then you can, like I said, go to these past events and stuff, like you did in 1982. I do think ineptitude is recognized before we, the people, even see it, and I think it's really useful to have somebody like Gavin Newsom, who I believe is inept. Like I believe he's an inept governor. Like I don't think he's very smart. I don't think that he's putting on an act that he's like saying stupid things. I think he's legitimately doing that. However, if I'm trying to shut down a state, and especially one that's capable of just like doing ultimate surveillance, Silicon Valley's right in the heart of it and everything, I want him as governor if I'm trying to do that. You know what I mean? Like the smart guy who's putting this out there, if let's say you're a max, I want him in charge there. In the same way I would use ineptitude, I would say serial killers would be in there too. Be like, this guy's a psycho. And if I'm trying to up the surveillance, we're getting into the big time 80s here. We're getting into a more tech, forward area. We're getting out of the 70s. We're doing that. I'm letting these serial killers go crazy, and I want people to not even let their kids go outside, the van, all of that hysteria. I'm trying to, if I'm trying to do that, these guys are going to exist. Some could say that they were made with MK Ultra. I certainly do not close the door on that. There's certainly some stuff there. However, I do think there are just sociopaths out there as well. Like there's just people with, demons in them, whatever you want to say scientifically, to say that I think everyone understands there's sociopaths out there. But I view that as like ineptitude, in the same thing. Like I'm going to take that and put that in an important position, and I'm above that position. Some people might not know I exist, but I'm above that position. And if there's ineptitude below me, I can fool that person, make them think they're ever powerful, and keep using them until there's no water left in the cloth that I'm squeezing out. There's no juice left in the lemon. Any of this stuff, I can do that. Like that's where I stand right now. I don't because again, what you said about your family, at the end of the day, it's your family. Like I can go down the rabbit hole forever, but at the end of the day, I want to make sure the confines of these walls. I have yard work to do later. The leaves. I have conspiracies about the leaves in my backyard, and that's a conspiracy I can solve.
Right.
So I do love to apply that same therapy. Everybody's leaves blow into my yard. Doesn't matter what direction the wind's blowing. Everyone's leaves go into my fucking yard. And
leaves.
Dude, everybody's leaves. But guess what? I kind of look forward to it. If they stopped, I'd be like, you know what? But when I clean up the yard and I look outside and I look and I go, I cleaned up the leaves today. You know what I mean? I do still love to just apply that same schizo theory to something I can actually get done.
There's this book that I don't know how famous it is. I think the guy's name is Rothkopf. It's kind of like PF, and I believe it was called Superclass. And this would be back in maybe like 2000, early 2000s probably. And he himself is like kind of an elite, and the premise of his book was that there's 5,000 people that run everything. And of course, this has been shown in there was what was it? It was a Swiss, I believe it was a couple of Swiss mathematicians set out to disprove the idea that there's an elite that sort of makes decisions, as you were saying earlier. Like Newsom is ridiculous. I mean, he's ridiculous. He would like Kenny Shoes or I don't know, like a shoe store. He seems like a guy who should probably be working at a shoe store. Yeah. And then even then, I think he would fuck that up. I think that he would have an affair and his life would be a mess. And he's just ridiculous. And so the idea that there's somebody there above this who sees him as very useful because he's obviously narcissistic, obviously driven by material and sexual sorts of desire gratification, and not terribly bright. Dude, like we're what I mean, hundreds and hundreds of years past Machiavelli. Like it's a fact that he is useful to somebody. So I don't know when we're gonna, like, as a people, I wonder if we'll ever. I mean, shit. Today's the day they're voting on gonna drop the Epstein papers finally.
Yeah, oh yeah, of course.
So are we ever really gonna know? I wonder sometimes. I'm like, yeah, maybe we are gonna know like every single detail that's available to know about all of the main conspiracies. To me, MK Ultra is massive. I think it probably,
Yeah.
in the book, there's some suggestion that, or I try and suggest that, like, MK Ultra was just one of maybe a number of big umbrellas, and under these things were all manner of weird stuff that was happening that we probably, in all likelihood, setting fiction aside, I don't think we've heard about everything that was done. And yeah, I wonder if someday this will all come to light, and we'll kind of just, I mean, what will we make of it? I don't know, but where I stand on this stuff now is like there there's absolutely a super class, and the way they
Yes.
work is well known. Like it's not really a conspiracy to the interlocking directorships between boards of directors and stuff. This is all just happening all the time. And so back to maybe more real life things, would it make sense to start dumbing people down, to start scaring them, and to start just experimenting with ways that you could do that? Maybe through weird drugs, weird music choices, and then, yeah, I think that it's pretty well established they at least tried to do that. And has it worked? Well, I mean, dude, I don't see the same world now. 1982, the attitude was literally like, well, if someone tries to grab you, Andy, I want you to fight like hell. I want you to grab his balls and I want you to rip them off and then run. And
Yeah.
then but people are now like, dude, we need a tracking device for my kid.
Right. Right.
They don't walk down the street. So
Yeah.
things have absolutely changed.
Yeah. Your kid's just obese but safe in the house.
Right. I mean, what the fuck is up with that? It's
Yeah, I know.
crazy.
I
Yeah.
in my old neighborhood, I'm seeing it more now, out here in Nevada, but like in California towards the end, I didn't see kids playing in the front yard ever. And I didn't live in a bad neighborhood in California. Like it wasn't bad. I mean, yeah, if you went like 3 streets over, maybe you would see like a weird RV parked, Yeah, for sure. But for the most part, I was like, there's kids that just have basketball hoops in the front yard they don't use. It's just like, what, this is so strange, like as a, and maybe they say kids aren't interested in it. Yeah, well, my mom used to just lock the door. She used to go, okay, lunchtime's at this time. This time they go outside. I'm trying, she's like, I'm right here. You're with so and so. Give me a call from their house. I have all of the parents' phone numbers, so I can call. And all of these things. And
Yeah.
something might, God forbid, something might have happened. Look, something might have happened. And so it's very strange. It's I guess that's the trade-off that people are taking now, and I don't think it's going to have the greatest returns, in my opinion, with childhood health being where it is. My last question for you is, love this aspect of the book, constantly saying what song is playing in the background. Love it. Absolutely love that.
Thank you.
And almost addressing it like a radio DJ. Like maybe putting a lyric in there. I really enjoyed that. Like it was just not American Psycho. Here's the history of Genesis. Like none of that. Like just like boom, this song's playing right there. Really, especially during the Jay and Al scenes, and even the serial killer scenes. You're just like, wow, that really adds to it. Now,
Thank you.
you're dealing with a lot of 3-letter agencies here in this, a lot of the big spider web, the cabal of elites and all and what have you. Now, it's no question that they've had their hands in music. I have an interesting take about music that was made by the elites during like the 60s and the 70s and whatever. I think it was good back then, and we have to think that they're still involved with it now. Why does it suck now? Like that's my problem. Like, okay, that was a great patronage network to me. If you told me that the CIA was like, hey, we're going to bring rock and roll back tomorrow. Like we're going to bring rock and roll back, guitar music. I'd be like, tax whatever you want. I will bring, I want to be able, I don't care what you do. If you run cocaine through Bolivia to here and all this, you can do anything you want. give me back rock music, because like that's why boomers are the way they are. That's the patronage network they grew up under, is that they were like, we will give you this music, we're going to give you Neil Young, Laurel Canyon, all of this stuff, you are a patriot, you get a house, you get cool music, all that stuff. Of course they're going to believe everything they see on TV, because that rewarded them. Nowadays we get literally like the worst music of all time. We are taxed to the gills in all of these things. And I go, it's a reverse patronage. It makes me hate this stuff.
I know, 100%. That's brilliant. And I couldn't agree more. I mean, literally, if you said, all right, we're going to start running guns and, working with black market cocaine money, but Guns N' Roses is coming back and better than you, I'd be like, damn, well, okay. Because it's absolutely right now I'm getting nothing. And I'm getting like, I don't know, that's maybe the conspiracy is this like the banality of evil.
Yes.
Where it's just like, man, this is just boring and stupid and ugly, when wet ass pussy, sorry, but I mean things like this are like constant. Yeah, dude, that's a very, I love it. I'm in. I'm down. I think about this all the time. Like, I mean, I play guitar every day, all the time. It's a huge part of my life. My speakers here somewhere. I play the stuff for my kids, and maybe I tend to like. Well, you know the story because you read the book. Like, was it Glenn Campbell? They had this set of like really competent studio musicians that would, in Los Angeles, kind of step forward and maybe work things out for whoever, Jim Morrison, who maybe didn't know that much about music exactly. Okay, so what? Right now, like things are architected in Sweden in a lab essentially, and then whatever amount of soul managed to get in, they extract that before it goes to your ears. I don't see really that much of a big problem. Some of the lyrics you could say, well, the culture was trying to be steered. But I mean, it was still being steered in kind of a more interesting and maybe arguably better way than it's being steered now. It's still being steered. It's really I'll say this, like, I don't know how interesting it is to anybody, but I'm working on the next big, well, not the next. I have this one big massive project, and then I have this other big massive project. And one of them is specifically about this. It's about music. And of course there's some music, illusion in Crowbar. And it's kind of my I'm trying to do the Elroy thing of sort of set out pieces that I can return to in another work. So whether or not I get to do this or if it ever comes to light, I don't know. But I have a feeling that there's more value in the musical piece than there is in all of the serial killer and all the other stuff. I think you could deal with all of that. And if we could get the music sort of sorted out, which may be a silly idea to some people, but that's kind of where I come down on it.
Oh, I think it's huge. And to me, like I said, I read Weird Scenes in the Canyon, and like I like McGowan. I mean, I think sometimes he's full of shit, honestly. Like sometimes you're just like, that is a huge jump. Like that is such speculate. Like there's such speculation on like what the outcome of certain things were. Like, but to me, I was kind of like, to be honest, I'm like, sounds good. I was like, I'm glad that happened. I came out of Laurel Canyon going like, sounds cool. Like I don't know. Like if these people are just degenerate freaks from military families, like that's the best use for them. Like I was like, this is great. Put out the, like, you telling me like Don Henley and like was living over here and in Houdini. Some people's living in Houdini's old house and stuff. Great. The Downward Spiral was recorded at the freaking the Roman Polanski Charles Manson house. Like awesome. You know what I mean? Like great. Like I just right now I'm like I can learn how to. Sabrina Carpenter can make like cheese dip on Vogue. Like that's where I'm at right now with music. That's where popular music is right now. And I guarantee you, the same 3-letter agencies are involved. So if they're ever present, and everything's going to come down to there, bring back rock music by any means necessary, because I think a lot of stuff, especially when people talk about declining testosterone stuff with men, a lot of that stuff, Me Too movement, a lot of these things that probably contributed to a lot of the problems that we have in modernity. A lot of that comes from the fact that rock and roll music's not allowed anymore, and everything is just a kind of like we're in 80s revival mode, like for longer than the 80s, as Cy would say.
Bingo. I agree 100%.
Yep. So everybody go buy Crowbar. Go check that out. Highly recommend. I read it. I didn't just have him on to talk about his book. I read the book. Was excellent. And I definitely want to check out some of your other work. I know it's not your first novel, but please finish whatever massive project you were just talking about with music. Do it on my account, because I will read that. It's like the number one question I have about everything is why can't we do this? The infrastructure is clearly in place. So the Andy Edwards, let everyone know where you can find you, your work, and everything.
Most everything is on the app known as x.com. You can go there, and then there's a link tree. My handle there is Golden Goat Guild. Andrew Edwards, or the title Crowbar, all that stuff I think will get you. And then, the link tree has direct shot to Amazon, or DM me if you need something. I'm happy to help. That's where I spend most of my time. But Glenn, thank you so much for having me. It's been a pleasure to speak with you.
Oh, always. It won't be the last time, man. I had a lot of fun. We'll definitely have to do something again sometime.
Cool.
For sure. So
I would love to.
Guys, like you said, you know where to find us, rcnow.org, and rarecandy.substack.com. If you love books, I've talked about over 70 novels on there so far. So much more to come. For instance, we have Thomas Pynchon's Vineland coming up, John Kennedy Toole's Confederacy of Dunces. And then we're huge backlog. We've covered a lot of the I won't say a lot of the classics, but a lot of big ones, from the Brothers Karamazov to like Alfred Bester pulp sci-fi. We've done a lot of that stuff on there. So on that note, guys, everybody have a safe week, and we will catch you guys next time.